I'm so sorry, I seem to be a few coins short. I'm so sorry, I seem to be a few coins short.
Take this. Get whatever you need.
Thank you, I will.
How do you measure someone's character? By what they do when someone's watching, or by what they do when they think no one will ever know? That's the question that's been haunting me for 3 years now, because I thought I knew the answer. I was certain I understood human nature, understood desperation, understood what poverty does to a person's integrity. I was wrong about all of it. How's everyone doing today? Whether you're watching this at 2 a.m. because sleep won't come, or you're on your lunch break trying to escape for a few minutes, or you're just scrolling looking for something that feels real, you're exactly where you need to be. This story isn't entertainment. It's not some feel-good fairy tale. It's the truth about what happened when I tried to prove a point and ended up having my entire worldview shattered in 24 hours. My name is James Chinadler. I built a tech empire worth $3.2 billion. I've been featured in Forbes, interviewed by CNN, called a visionary by people who matter. And 3 years ago, I believed I understood the world and how it works. By the end of this story, you'll understand why the cruelest test I ever designed became the most important lesson of my life. Why my attempt to prove people are fundamentally selfish revealed something else entirely. But I need you to hear everything, because the details matter. The small moments that almost no one saw, those are the ones that changed everything. I need to take you back to where this started. Not to the moment I handed over my credit card, that comes later. I need you to understand who I was 3 years ago because that context is everything. March 2022. My son David had been gone for 7 months. Leukemia. He was 9 years old. You know what's interesting about grief? I've told therapists, support groups, family, everyone has a script for how you're supposed to process it. Everyone wants you to find meaning, find healing, find a way forward. But I didn't want any of that. I wanted to be angry, and I found plenty of targets. I'd built my fortune on reading people, on understanding human behavior, on predicting what choices people would make under pressure. That's what good software development is, anticipating the user's next move before they know it themselves. So when I looked at the world after David died, I saw patterns. Ugly ones. I saw people who claimed they'd be there for you, who sent flowers and casseroles for exactly 2 weeks before disappearing. I saw the hospital staff who were angels to your face but complained about overtime in the hallways. I saw the charity organizations that spent more on galas than actual sick children. I saw people who were good when it was easy, when it was convenient, when someone was watching. But what about when no one was looking? What about when there was real temptation, real pressure, real need? That's what I became obsessed with. Testing that. Proving it. My wife Rachel thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. But I called it research. I started small. Leaving cash in obvious places, watching to see if service workers would pocket it or turn it in. Creating fake emergencies to see who'd actually help versus who'd film it for social media. Little experiments in human nature. And you know what I found? I was right. Most people failed. Not all, but enough to confirm what I already believed. That goodness is performance art. That integrity evaporates under pressure. That everyone has their price. Rachel left me after 8 months of this. Said I'd become bitter, cynical, obsessed. Said I was using grief as an excuse to punish the world. Said David wouldn't recognize who I'd become. That last part hurt because it was true. But I couldn't stop. Which brings me to February 2023. A Thursday. One of those gray winter mornings where the cold seeps through your bones no matter how many layers you wear. I was walking through downtown Seattle, heading to a meeting I'd scheduled with my head of operations. We were going to discuss a hostile takeover bid. Nothing unusual. The coffee shop on Pine Street, that's where I saw her. Nina was behind me in line. I wouldn't have noticed her at all except for the little girl. Maybe 6 years old, in a pink jacket that was too thin for the weather, holding her mother's hand. The mother, Nina, though I didn't know her name yet, was counting change. Literally counting pennies from her coat pocket, making a small pile on the counter. The barista was patient, but you could see it in her eyes. that mixture of pity and impatience. The line was backing up. I was checking my phone, half paying attention. "I'm sorry," Nina said quietly. "I thought I had enough for 2 hot chocolates, but could we just do one? And maybe a small coffee?" The little girl, I'd learned her name was Mara, looked up at her mother with these enormous brown eyes. She didn't complain, didn't whine or beg, just quietly accepted that she wasn't getting a hot chocolate. She was used to disappointment. You could see it in the way her small shoulders fell, but her face stayed neutral. That killed me. A child that young shouldn't be that good at hiding disappointment. "That's fine, Mom," Mara said. Her voice was tiny but steady. "I'm not that cold anyway." The lie was obvious. Her lips had a blue tinge. Something twisted in my chest. David used to love hot chocolate. He'd get the whipped cream on his nose and laugh. That laugh. I stepped forward before I knew what I was doing. "I've got this," I said to the barista, pulling out my wallet. 2 large hot chocolates with extra whipped cream. And whatever she wants to eat. Nina turned to me, startled. Up close, I could see she was younger than I'd thought. Late 20s, maybe. Tired eyes but proud posture. She was pretty in that way that poverty tries to erase but can't quite manage. Good bone structure showing through despite the exhaustion. "That's not necessary," she said immediately. Defensive. Like accepting help was a threat to something she was holding on to. "I know it's not necessary," I said. "But my meeting was just cancelled. This was a lie. And I'm in a good mood. Let me." The barista was already ringing it up. Nina's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue further. Pride and practicality warring on her face. Practicality won, but barely. "Thank you," she said stiffly. Then to Mara, "What do you say?" "Thank you so much, sir." Mara's whole face transformed. That smile, it was pure joy over something so small. A $5 hot chocolate. I nodded and moved to leave, but something made me glance back. Nina was carefully wrapping Mara's hands around the warm cup, making sure her daughter got the heat from it, making sure Mara got the first sip, the best sip with the most whipped cream. She didn't touch her own drink until Mara was settled. I watched her notice me watching. Her chin came up, defiant, like she knew I was judging her poverty and she refused to be ashamed. And that's when it happened. That's when the idea sparked. What would someone like her do with unlimited resources? Someone clearly desperate, clearly struggling, clearly at the end of their rope. What would someone who couldn't afford hot chocolate do with access to hundreds of thousands of dollars? Because I was certain I knew. She'd max it out. Of course she would. Anyone would. She'd see an opportunity to solve all her problems and she'd take it. Consequences be damned. Maybe she'd feel guilty after, maybe she'd justify it to herself, but she'd do it. Everyone does when the pressure is real enough. I could test it. I could actually test the one thing I'd been theorizing about for months. What does someone do when they think they can get away with it? When the temptation is massive and the oversight is absent. And maybe, just maybe, when she failed, because she would fail, it would prove what I already knew. That I was right. That people are fundamentally self-serving. That the world really was as dark as it seemed after David died. I spent the next 3 hours canceling meetings and setting up the experiment. But before I tell you what I did, you need to understand who Nina actually was. Because I didn't know any of this at the time. I found out later, piece by piece, and each piece made what happened hurt more. Nina Reeves was 29 years old. She'd had Mara at 23. During her last year at Seattle University, where she was studying elementary education. The father, Mara's father, left when Nina was 7 months pregnant. Just gone one day. No note, no explanation, no forwarding address. Blocked her on everything and vanished like he'd never existed. She had to drop out of school. No family support. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19, and she'd been on her own since then. No siblings. No trust fund. No safety net. She worked 3 jobs. Morning shift at a grocery store stocking shelves, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Afternoon shift cleaning office buildings, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Evening shifts doing data entry from home after Mara went to bed, 9 p.m. until whenever she couldn't keep her eyes open anymore. She was making about $2,400 a month total. Her rent for a studio apartment in a building that barely met code was $1,200. Childcare was $600. That left $600 for food, utilities, transportation, clothes, medical emergencies, everything else. She'd gotten food stamps, but they'd been cut after some paperwork issue she didn't have time to fight. She was on a waiting list for subsidized housing that was 2,800 families long. Mara was in first grade at a public school where the teachers bought supplies with their own money because the district had no budget. Nina volunteered in the classroom every week because she wanted Mara to have what other kids had, a parent who showed up, who was involved. Never mind that it meant Nina slept for maybe 5 hours a night. Never mind that she was literally wearing shoes with cardboard inside because the soles had worn through and she couldn't afford new ones yet. She'd been beautiful once in her college photos, bright-eyed and full of plans. But poverty is erosion. It grinds you down in ways that are hard to see until you put the before and after side by side. The way her hands were always raw from cleaning chemicals. The way her back had developed a permanent hunch from bending over, lifting, scrubbing. The way her smile had become something she had to remember to do, rather than something that happened automatically. But here's what poverty hadn't taken: her standards for Mara. Mara's homework was always done. Every single night, no matter how tired Nina was. Mara's clothes were always clean, even if they were thrift store finds. Mara got hugs and "I love you" and bedtime stories every night, even when Nina's voice was hoarse from exhaustion. Mara was read to constantly. Library books, since Nina couldn't buy them. Mara knew she was loved, knew she was important, knew she mattered. Nina was the kind of mother who would skip meals so Mara could eat more. The kind who'd walk 3 miles in the rain to save $2 on bus fare, but would spend that $2 on a coloring book for her daughter. The kind who worked herself to the edge of collapse but never, ever let Mara see her cry. The kind of mother my son David deserved to have lived long enough to appreciate having. But I didn't know any of that when I approached her outside the coffee shop 20 minutes after buying those hot chocolates. She was sitting on a bench outside, Mara next to her. They were sharing what looked like half a bagel Nina had brought from home. Mara had chocolate on her nose from the hot chocolate. She was chattering about something that happened at school. A boy who'd brought his pet hamster for show and tell. Nina was listening with that particular quality of attention that good mothers have. The kind where even though her eyes were tired, even though I could see the weight of her life in every line of her body, she was fully present for her daughter's joy about a hamster. I'd seen Rachel do that with David before. "Excuse me," I said, approaching carefully. I'd learned that desperate people startle easily. "I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I talk to you for a minute?" Nina's hand immediately went to Mara's shoulder. Protective. Her eyes scanned me. Expensive coat, nice watch, the kind of threat that comes with power rather than violence. "About what?" "Wary. Smart. About a proposition. A strange one, I'll admit. But I'm serious and I'm legitimate." I pulled out my wallet and handed her my business card. Heavy cardstock. Embossed letters. James Chinadler, CEO, Tech Vision Systems. She looked at it without taking it. "I'm not interested in." "It's not that kind of proposition," I said quickly. "I'm conducting a social experiment. I'd like to give you my credit card for 24 hours. You can use it however you want. No strings attached. No limits. No cameras, no tracking, nothing. Just 24 hours of complete access." She stared at me like I'd started speaking another language. "This is a joke," she said flatly. "It's not. I'm completely serious." I pulled out my wallet again and removed my American Express Centurion card. The black card. No preset spending limit. I held it out to her. She didn't move. Just looked at the card. Then at me, then at the card again. "Why?" The question was sharp. Suspicious. She wasn't stupid, and she knew there was always a catch. "Because I want to see what you'll do with it," I said honestly. "I'm studying human behavior under pressure. How people make choices when given sudden, unexpected resources. You want to see if I'll steal from you. Direct. I liked that. I want to see what decisions you make when the usual constraints are removed." I corrected. "But yes, that's what I meant. I expected her to steal from me. I wanted her to steal from me, so I could prove my point. This is insane, she said, but her eyes kept flicking to the card. I could see her mind working, calculating. What could she do with 24 hours of unlimited money? How many problems could she solve? Probably, I agreed. But I'm serious. 24 hours. Starting now. Return the card to me tomorrow at this same spot, same time. Whatever you spend, I won't contest. I won't prosecute. I won't even judge. I just want to know what you choose. Why me? Her voice had dropped, gotten quieter, more dangerous. Out of everyone in Seattle, why pick the broke woman with a kid? Why choose someone desperate? Because desperation is the variable I'm testing for. Honest. Maybe too honest. Her jaw tightened. For a second, I thought she was going to tell me to go to hell. Part of me hoped she would. It would make things simpler. But then Mara tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mom? Is that man giving you a magic card? Nina's expression did something complicated. Softened and hardened at the same time. Sweetheart, can you go count how many pigeons you see? I'll be right here, just 10 feet away. She waited until Mara had bounced off, delighted with her assignment, before turning back to me. If I take this, she said slowly, you're going to follow me, film me, make me part of some documentary where rich people watch poor people fail. No cameras. No following. You have my word. Your word. She almost laughed. I don't know you. Then don't take the card. We stared at each other. The February cold bit at my face, but I didn't move. This moment, this was everything. Would she take it? Would desperation override pride and caution? She reached out. Her hand was shaking slightly. She took the card. 24 hours, she said. Tomorrow, same time. Same time, I confirmed. She studied the card like it might vanish if she blinked. Then she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It might have been gratitude. It might have been contempt. Maybe both. You have no idea what you've just done, she said quietly. Then she called Mara back and walked away without another word. I watched them go. Nina's hand gripping the card like a lifeline, or a weapon. Mara skipping beside her, oblivious to the fact that her mother was holding something that could change their lives or destroy them, depending on what came next. I felt pleased with myself. The experiment had begun. By this time tomorrow, I'd have proof of what I already knew. People are selfish. Desperation makes thieves of everyone. Given enough pressure and enough temptation, no one stays noble. I'd be proven right. The world would make sense again. And maybe that certainty would fill some small part of the hole David's death had left behind. I pulled out my phone and opened the American Express app. The card was active. Already, I could see it had been used. $147 at a pharmacy 10 minutes ago. It had begun. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that I wasn't testing Nina's character. I was testing my own capacity to be wrong. And over the next 24 hours, she was going to teach me the difference between poverty and greed, between need and theft, between who I thought people were and who they actually are when no one's watching. But we're not there yet. First, you need to see what happened next. I told myself I wouldn't check, that the whole point was to step back, remove oversight, let Nina make her choices without the pressure of being watched. I lasted 45 minutes. By then, the card had been used 3 more times. I sat in my home office, my laptop open, the American Express transaction list refreshing every 30 seconds. Each notification made my heart rate spike. Transaction 1, $147.82, Walgreens Pharmacy. Pine St. Transaction 2, $89.34, Safeway Grocery. Capitol Hill Transaction 3, $67, Goodwill Store. Cherry St. Transaction 4, $1,250, Seattle Housing Authority. I stared at that last one. $1,250 to the Housing Authority? That was specific. That was rent? Security deposit? The pattern confused me. I'd expected one of 2 things. Either complete restraint, fear-based, proving she was good, or complete abandonment, maxing out the card on everything she'd ever wanted. But this was neither. This was methodical, deliberate. Each charge seemed to have purpose. My phone rang. Rachel, my ex-wife. We'd managed to stay cordial after the divorce, mostly because she worried about me in a way that felt like obligation but I suspected was actually still love. "Tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing," she said without preamble. "How did you?" "David's Trust called me. Said you'd authorized a large donation through your American Express. They wanted to confirm it was legitimate and not fraud. David's Trust, the leukemia research fund we'd set up in his name." I felt my stomach drop. "How much?" My voice came out hoarse. $5,000. "James, please tell me you didn't give some random person access to your accounts." I couldn't speak. $5,000 to David's Trust. Nina had donated to my dead son's charity. She didn't know David, didn't know me, didn't know the connection. She'd seen a childhood cancer fund and she'd given $5,000 to it. "James? Are you there?" "I'm here. What did you do?" I told her. The coffee shop, the experiment, the credit card. Rachel was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. "You gave a desperate woman unlimited money to prove she'd steal from you." Her voice was flat, disappointed. "And when she's doing exactly what you set her up to fail at, you're surprised?" "She hasn't stolen anything," I said. "Not yet. She's spending money. On groceries and rent and a $5,000 donation to our son's charity." Rachel's voice cracked. "She doesn't know that's your charity, does she?" "No." "So she just saw a cause for sick children and decided to give. While you're sitting there watching her like a lab rat, waiting for her to prove she's as terrible as you've decided everyone is." The words hit like punches. "You've become someone I don't recognize," Rachel continued. "David would be heartbroken to see what his death did to you. He'd be heartbroken that you're using his memory to justify cruelty." She hung up. I sat there, the laptop screen glowing in front of me. More transactions were coming through. Transaction 5, $892. Seattle Children's Hospital. Gift shop transaction 6, $200. Coffee Bean Dreams. Gift card purchase transaction 7, $340. Target. Children's clothing transaction 8, $125. Public Library Foundation. The pattern was becoming clearer, and it wasn't the pattern I'd expected at all. I'd done this before, given people access to money to see what they'd do. Small amounts, controlled situations. Every single time, people had taken more than they needed, had justified it to themselves, had proven my thesis. But Nina wasn't following the script. By 6 p.m., the total was $8,943.67. A lot of money, but not outrageous. Not the 50 or 100,000 I'd expected someone in her position to burn through. And every single charge seemed deliberate, purposeful. I found myself checking my email. There, a receipt from Seattle Children's Hospital. The $892 charge. I opened it. Purchase. Gift shop donation program. 50 toys for oncology ward note. In memory of all the children fighting. Keep going. Couldn't breathe. She'd bought toys for kids with cancer. 50 toys. She'd emptied a gift shop to fill the playroom in the oncology ward where David had spent his final months. She couldn't have known. It was impossible. But somehow this stranger had managed to make a donation that would have meant everything to 9-year-old David. Everything to the kids currently in those rooms, scared and sick and wishing someone would remember them. My hands were shaking when I called the hospital. Children's Oncology Ward. This is Jennifer. Hi. This is going to sound strange, but someone made a donation to your gift shop today? Around $900 in toys. Oh my gosh, yes. Are you the donor? Sir, you should know that the woman who brought everything in, she stayed. She's been here for 2 hours, playing with the kids. She brought her daughter and they've been reading stories, doing puzzles, just being present. The kids are obsessed with them both. We haven't seen this kind of energy in the ward in months. I felt something crack open in my chest. What did she say? When she brought the toys? She said, let me remember exactly. She said, every child deserves to feel special. especially the ones who are fighting battles no one should have to fight. Sir, are you okay? You sound. I hung up. Rude. But I couldn't speak anymore. Nina was at the hospital. With Mara. Spending her 24 hours of unlimited money not on herself, but sitting with dying children. Reading to them. Playing with them. Giving them attention and joy and the feeling of being special. The feeling I couldn't give David enough of before he was gone. This wasn't the experiment I'd designed. This wasn't the result I'd prepared for. Nina was supposed to be selfish. Supposed to prove that everyone, under enough pressure, chooses themselves first. But she wasn't choosing herself. She was choosing everyone else. Transaction 9, $2,400, Salvation Army. Emergency Family Services Transaction 10, $500, Mary's Place. Women's Shelter Transaction 11, $750, Youth Care. Homeless Youth Services. The charges kept coming. Each one a deliberate choice to help someone else. Each one a rejection of the assumption I'd made about who she was and what poverty does to a person's soul. By 9 p.m., the total was $15,734.82. By midnight, it was $24,891.45. I should have gone to bed, should have stopped watching, but I couldn't, because somewhere in Seattle, a woman I'd handed unlimited power to was systematically choosing to lift other people up instead of herself. Was taking the opportunity I'd given her to prove she was just like everyone else, and was using it to prove she was better than I'd ever hoped to be. The last transaction of the night came through at 1:47 a.m. Transaction 47, $18,000, Seattle University, Student Emergency Fund note. For the single parents who had to drop out, let them finish. I put my head in my hands and cried for the first time since David's funeral, because I'd been so certain, so sure that I understood how the world worked, how people operated, what desperation made you do. I'd been certain that Nina would prove me right, that she'd take and justify it and confirm everything I'd decided was true about human nature. Instead, she'd taken the tool I'd given her to prove everyone was selfish, and she'd used it to prove that maybe, just maybe, I'd been looking at the world through the wrong lens this entire time. I'd wanted to catch her being small, being human in the worst way, being the person I'd convinced myself everyone becomes when no one's watching. But she'd caught me instead. Caught me being small, being bitter, being the person I'd become after David died. Someone who'd decided that if the world could be cruel enough to take my son, then everyone in it must be fundamentally cruel too. The experiment wasn't over. I still had to face her tomorrow. Had to look her in the eye and acknowledge what she'd done with the test I'd designed for her to fail. But sitting there at 2 a.m., watching the transaction list that read more like a charity event than a shopping spree, I realized something that made my stomach hurt. I hadn't been testing Nina's character. I'd been revealing my own, and I'd failed spectacularly. The question wasn't what would Nina do with unlimited resources. The question was, what kind of person designs a test like this in the first place? What kind of person gives someone desperate a chance to fail and calls it research? What kind of person had I become? Tomorrow I'd have to find out if it was too late to become someone different. If it was too late to be someone David would have recognized. Someone Nina's example had shown me I desperately needed to be. But that reckoning was still hours away. First, I had to get through the night. And the night was very, very long. Transaction 48, $3.47, 24-hour diner, coffee and toast time. 2:03 a.m. note. First thing she'd bought for herself all day. I didn't sleep. How could I? By 6 a.m., I'd gone through every transaction 3 times, made a spreadsheet, categorized each purchase, created a profile of Nina Reeves based purely on how she'd spent my money. The data told a story I hadn't expected to read. Total spent, $43,847.61. Spent on herself, $3.47. Coffee and toast at 2 a.m. Spent on Mara, $340. Winter coat, boots, school supplies. Spent on charitable donations, $31,250. Spent on direct aid to other individuals, $12,254.14. That last category confused me until I started digging into the itemized receipts. She'd gone to a homeless encampment and bought supplies, paid for hotel rooms for 3 families, covered someone's overdue medical bills, bought groceries for an entire apartment building. At 7 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Chinadler? A woman's voice. Professional. This is Detective Sarah Morrison with Seattle PD. I'm calling about some unusual activity on your American Express card. My blood went cold. What kind of activity? Large charitable donations, multiple purchases at social service organizations, and a pattern of spending that triggered our fraud alert system. We wanted to verify that you're aware of these transactions before we. It's not fraud, I said quickly. I authorized all of it. Silence. Then, sir, are you under duress? Is someone forcing you to say this? No, How did I explain this? I'm conducting an experiment. I gave someone access to my card for 24 hours. This is all legitimate. More silence. You gave a stranger access to an unlimited credit card. Yes. For an experiment. Yes. Mr. Chinadler, with all respect, that's one of the stupidest things I've heard this week. And I work fraud cases. I almost laughed. It would have been if it wasn't so accurate. The card gets returned today. If there's any issue after that, I'll report it. But for now, everything is authorized. Your funeral, she said and hung up. I looked at the clock. 7:23 a.m. The meeting was at 11 a.m. at the coffee shop. Less than 4 hours. I had time to go through more of the receipts, try to understand the full scope of what Nina had done. Transaction 52, $2,100. Grocery store. Bulk purchase receipt shows 47 bags of groceries. Delivered to St. Vincent, Delaware Paul Food Bank. Transaction 58, $890. Medical clinic. Anonymous patient payment note. For whoever needs it most today. Transaction 63, $4,500. Dental office. Multiple patient accounts note. Kids dental work. No child should hurt. Every single purchase had a note. Every single one revealed thought, intention, care. This wasn't impulsive spending. This wasn't even strategic self-interest. This was someone who'd been given power and had weaponized it for kindness. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Rachel, I saw the trust donation notification. Please tell me you're okay. I stared at the message. Was I okay? I'd spent months trying to prove the world was dark. And in 24 hours, a woman I'd tried to trap had proven there was still light. Had proven I was the one who'd been living in darkness. Me, I don't know what I am, but I think I'm about to find out. Rachel, be careful. And James, whatever you find out today, remember that David loved you for who you were capable of being, not who you became after he left. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking. I couldn't just sit there. At 8 a.m., I got in my car and started driving to the locations Nina had visited. I needed to see, needed to understand. First stop, Seattle Children's Hospital. The oncology ward was on the 4th floor. I took the elevator up, my heart pounding. I hadn't been back here since David died. The smell hit me first, that particular combination of disinfectant and fear that every hospital has, but pediatric oncology has worse. Because there's the additional scent of trying too hard cheerfulness. Cartoon characters on the walls. Bright colors everywhere, trying to disguise the reality of what happens in these rooms. Jennifer, the nurse I'd spoken to, recognized me immediately. Her face went soft with recognition and pity. Mr. Chinadler. I'm so sorry, I didn't realize yesterday. The woman who brought the toys, she was with you. In a sense, I said. Can you tell me what happened? After she brought the donations. Jennifer glanced at the playroom. Through the window I could see it, transformed. New toys everywhere. Stuffed animals, board games, art supplies, books. Things that made the space look less like a hospital and more like a place where kids could still be kids. She stayed for 3 hours, Jennifer said. Her and her daughter. They played with every single child who was well enough to come out of their rooms. She read stories, did puzzles. Her daughter Mara, I think, she was teaching the kids how to make paper cranes. Said her mom had taught her and now she wanted to teach them. My throat tightened. What did Nina say? About what? About why she was there. Why she bought all of this. Jennifer looked at me carefully. She said, I don't have much, but today I have enough to share. And these kids deserve everything. She paused. She cried when she was leaving. One of the kids, Tommy, he's 7, just started his second round of chemo. He gave her a drawing he'd made of her and Mara as superheroes. She held it like it was made of gold. I had to look away. Thank you for telling me. Mr. Chen Adler? Jennifer's voice was gentle. Whatever brought her here yesterday, whatever reason she had, it mattered. Tommy's been struggling. Not eating, not engaging. But yesterday he laughed. He played. He felt like a normal kid for 3 hours. That's a gift you can't put a price on. I nodded because I couldn't speak. Tommy was 7. David had been 9. Same disease. Same fear. Different outcome. Maybe. I left before I completely fell apart. Second stop. The homeless encampment under the I-5 overpass. It was the kind of place most people drive past without seeing. Tents and tarps. Shopping carts full of possessions. People who'd become invisible to the city around them. I parked a block away and walked in. A man in his 50s, weathered face and wary eyes, looked up as I approached. You a cop? He asked. No. I'm looking for information about a woman who came through yesterday. Bought supplies. His expression changed. You know Nina? You know her name? She told us. Spent 4 hours here. Bought sleeping bags, coats, food, first aid supplies. Paid for 3 families to get into temporary housing. But more than that. He stopped, shook his head. She talked to us. Actually talked to us. Not at us, not past us. To us. Asked our names. Asked our stories. Treated us like people. She didn't know any of you? Never seen her before yesterday. But she said. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. On it, in neat handwriting, you are not forgotten. You matter. Keep fighting. Nina's signature at the bottom. She wrote one for everyone here, he said. 37 people. Took the time to write a personal note for every single one of us. His eyes were wet. Do you know what that's like? When you're invisible every single day, and someone takes the time to see you. I did know. That's what grief had done to me. Made me invisible to myself. Made me stop seeing anything but my own pain. Thank you, I managed. Hey, if you see her again, tell her Marcus said thank you. Tell her the note is in my pocket and it's staying there. Marcus. I filed the name away. Another life Nina had touched. Another person she'd chosen to see. Third stop. The coffee shop where Nina worked her morning shift. The manager, a tired-looking woman named Patricia, was restocking shelves when I walked in. I'm looking for information about Nina Reeves, I said. Patricia's face immediately went defensive. What about her? She in trouble? No. No trouble. I just need to understand who she is. Why? Suspicious. Protective. I decided on honesty. Because I gave her something yesterday, and what she did with it is challenging everything I thought I knew about people. Patricia studied me. Then she sighed. Nina's worked here for 2 years. Never late. Never calls in sick. Never complains. Works harder than anyone I've ever managed. And I've been doing this for 20 years. What's she like? Tired. Always tired. But kind. You know how rare that is? To be exhausted and struggling and still be kind. Patricia shook her head. Last Christmas, the staff did a secret Santa. Nina drew Tommy, one of the stock boys, 19, saving for community college. She spent $50 on his gift. $50 she didn't have. Got him books for his classes. I asked her why she spent so much and she said, because someone believed in me once. I'm paying it forward. Who believed in her? I don't know. But I know she's raising that little girl alone, working 3 jobs, and somehow that kid is the happiest, most well-adjusted child I've ever seen. You know why? Because Nina never lets Mara see her struggle. Never lets her daughter feel poor. Mara thinks they're rich because Nina tells her they have each other. And that's the greatest wealth. And the scary thing is, Mara believes it. Patricia's voice had gone rough. So whatever you gave Nina yesterday, whatever experiment you're running, you better not hurt her. Because that woman has been hurt enough by people who didn't see her worth. I won't, I promised, and meant it. By 10 a.m., I was back in my car, reviewing the last of the transactions. The total had reached $47,382.19, nearly $50,000, in 24 hours. But here's what broke me. I found a transaction I'd missed earlier. Transaction 91, $156.78, Evergreen Elementary School, Classroom Fund Note, for Ms. Rodriguez's first grade class. Every child deserves supplies. Evergreen Elementary, that was Mara's school. Ms. Rodriguez was Mara's teacher. I'd found the school website earlier while researching Nina. The teacher had a note on the class page about needing supplies but the district having no budget. Nina had funded her daughter's entire classroom. Not just for Mara, but for all 30 kids. Pencils, crayons, books, art supplies, everything a first-grade class needed to thrive. But she hadn't bought Mara anything special. Hadn't singled her daughter out. Had made sure every child benefited equally. That was the moment I understood. Nina hadn't seen the credit card as an opportunity for herself. She'd seen it as responsibility, as stewardship, as a chance to do what she'd do if she had wealth, lift everyone around her. She hadn't failed my test. I failed hers. The clock showed 10:47 a.m. I had 13 minutes until she was supposed to meet me. 13 minutes to figure out what to say to someone who'd revealed that everything I'd believed about human nature was not just wrong, but poisonously wrong. 13 minutes to figure out if I could be honest enough to admit that I designed this test hoping she'd fail so I wouldn't have to face the fact that I was the one who'd already failed. Failed to see goodness, failed to believe in people, failed to honor my son's memory by being someone worth remembering. I drove to the coffee shop. Nina was already there. She was sitting on the same bench where I'd found her yesterday. Mara was beside her, same pink jacket, but today she was wearing new boots. The only visible thing Nina had bought for her daughter, practical boots for the rain and cold. Nina saw me approaching and stood. Her posture was different than yesterday. Not defensive, not wary, just tired. The kind of tired that goes deeper than sleep can fix. She held out the credit card before I could say anything. 24 hours, she said simply. As promised. I took the card. Our fingers touched briefly. Hers were rough, calloused, the hands of someone who worked with them constantly. Mine were soft. I felt ashamed of that softness. Thank you for returning it, I said. The words felt absurdly inadequate. Did you learn what you wanted to learn? Her voice was level, but there was something underneath it. Not anger. Something worse, disappointment. I stopped. Started again. Can we talk? Please. Not here. Somewhere private. She glanced at Mara, who was building a small rock tower on the ground. I have to get her to school. After. Please. This afternoon. I need to tell you something. She studied my face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there made her expression soften slightly. The library. 2 o'clock. Mara has a playdate after school. I have 2 hours. I'll be there. She nodded once, then called to Mara. They walked away, Mara's small hand in her mother's larger one. I watched them go and felt something crack open in my chest that had been locked tight for months. The Seattle Public Library, Central Branch. I'd been here hundreds of times. David loved the children's section. The yellow escalators. The bright red reading room on the 4th floor. We'd spent whole Saturdays here, him surrounded by picture books. Me pretending to work but actually just watching him discover stories. I hadn't been back since he died. Nina found me in a quiet corner of the 5th floor, away from foot traffic. She sat down across from me, her movements economical, someone used to conserving energy. You wanted to talk, she said. I owe you an explanation. I pulled out my laptop. I tracked every transaction. I know what you did. Her jaw tightened. You said no following. No cameras. I didn't follow you. I watched the charges. I couldn't help myself. I turned the laptop toward her, showing the spreadsheet. I needed to understand. She looked at the data. Her expression didn't change, but her hands clasped together in her lap, bracing. So you know, she said quietly, I know you spent nearly $50,000 in 24 hours, and less than 1% of it was on yourself. Is that what this is about? You think I should have spent more on me? There was an edge to her voice now. You think I failed your test because I didn't buy designer clothes or a new car? No. The word came out fierce. No, Nina. You didn't fail anything. I did. She blinked. What? I gave you that card because I wanted to prove something. I wanted to prove that everyone, given enough pressure, enough desperation, enough temptation, would choose themselves first, would take more than they deserved, would prove that desperation makes thieves of everyone. So you picked the desperate woman with a kid. Her voice was flat now, understanding and hurt mixing together. Yes, I picked you because I thought I was certain you'd max out the card on yourself, solve all your problems, take everything you could get away with. And when you did, I'd have proof that I was right, that people are fundamentally selfish. Why did you need that proof? The question hit me in the chest. I had to look away. My son died 15 months ago. Leukemia. He was 9 years old. The words came out mechanical. I'd said them so many times they'd lost texture. And after he died, I couldn't reconcile it. Couldn't understand how the world could be so cruel. How people could just keep living their normal lives while my son was gone. How everyone seemed so selfish, so small, so focused on themselves. I made myself look at her. Her expression had shifted. The hardness was still there, but now there was something else. Recognition, like she understood something about me I hadn't said. So you decided to prove everyone was as dark as you felt? She said softly. Yes. The admission felt like bleeding. I've been running these experiments for months, giving people opportunities to be selfish, and they always took them, always proved me right, until you. Nina was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. I'm sorry about your son, truly. I can't imagine. She stopped. No, that's a lie. I can imagine. Every single day I imagine losing Mara. It's my nightmare. The thing I pray never happens. But it did happen, I said. To me. And it made me into someone who would do what I did to you. Someone who would test a struggling mother just to prove a point. What point were you trying to prove? Exactly? That goodness is a lie. That everyone has their price. That integrity is just what we call selfishness when we want to feel better about ourselves. And what did I prove instead? I pulled out a different spreadsheet. This one I'd made this morning, categorizing her spending by type and recipient. You proved that I was looking at the world through the wrong lens. You spent $47,000, and you used it like someone who understood poverty not as a personal failure but as a systemic one. You didn't just help yourself. You helped everyone around you who was struggling the same way you were. The homeless, the sick kids, the other single parents, the people working 3 jobs just to survive. You saw my money as a chance to lift others, not just yourself. Nina's eyes were wet. She looked away, jaw working. You want to know what the worst part is? I continued. The transaction that broke me? Coffee and toast at a 24-hour diner at 2 a.m. $3.47. That was the first thing you bought for yourself. After giving away nearly $50,000, you stopped at a diner at 2 in the morning and bought coffee and toast because you were exhausted and needed fuel to keep going. That's who you are. I'm not special, she said, her voice thick. I know what it's like to need help and not get it. I know what it's like to be invisible. And yesterday, for 24 hours, I wasn't powerless. I could help. So I did. That's exactly my point. I leaned forward. Nina, most people in your position would have solved their own problems first. Paid off debt. Bought a car. Secured housing. Saved for the future. And that would have been completely understandable, completely justified. But you didn't. You saw other people's pain as more urgent than your own comfort. My daughter has a coat and boots now, Nina said defensively. I made sure she had what she needed. $340 on Mara, and $12,000 on other people's children. Toys for sick kids, dental work for kids in pain, classroom supplies for kids who need them. You mothered the entire city for a day. She was crying now silently, tears running down her face, but her posture still straight, still proud. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Why does it matter what I did? You got your card back. Experiment over. Because I need you to understand what you did to me. My own voice was rough now. I've spent 15 months trying to prove the world is dark. Trying to prove that David died in a world that doesn't deserve him. That goodness is a lie and kindness is a performance. And in 24 hours, you destroyed every piece of evidence I'd built up. You proved that even in the darkest circumstances, even when you're struggling and desperate and have every reason to choose yourself first, you can still choose light. You can still choose to be better than your circumstances demand. I'm not better than anyone, Nina said fiercely. I'm just a woman who got lucky for one day, who got a chance most people never get. Don't make me into some kind of saint. I'm not, but I am saying that you're evidence I was wrong. Evidence that my son died in a world that still has people like you in it. And maybe, my voice cracked. Maybe that means the world isn't as dark as I've been telling myself it is. We sat in silence. Around us, the library hummed with quiet activity. People reading, studying, existing in their own small worlds. All of them carrying their own struggles, their own stories, their own choices about what kind of person to be. Nina wiped her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was steady again. Your son, she said. David. The Leukemia Trust. That was his. My stomach dropped. You know, I figured it out this morning. James Chinadler. David Chun Memorial Leukemia Research Fund. It wasn't hard to connect. She looked at me directly. I didn't know when I donated. I swear. I just saw childhood cancer research and I thought about Mara. About how if it was her, I'd want someone to fund the research that might save her. I know you didn't know. That's what makes it. I couldn't finish. I lost someone too, Nina said quietly. Not a child. My parents. Car accident when I was 19. One day they existed, and the next day they didn't, and nothing made sense anymore. And I spent years angry. Angry at drunk drivers, angry at chance, angry at a world that could take good people and leave terrible ones. I understand what you've been feeling. How did you stop being angry? I didn't. I just learned to be angry and kind at the same time. She smiled sadly. Mara helped. Hard to stay in darkness when you're responsible for someone else's light. But it's still there. The anger. I just don't let it be the only thing anymore. I thought about that. About David. About how he would have wanted me to live after he was gone. With anger, yes. With grief, yes. But not letting those be the only things. I'm sorry, I said finally. For what I did. For testing you like you were a lab rat instead of a person. For trying to use your struggle to prove my cynicism. You deserved better than that. Yes, she agreed simply. I did. But here's the thing, you gave me something too, even if it was for the wrong reasons. You gave me 24 hours of not being powerless. 24 hours of being able to help instead of just needing help. Do you know how rare that is? How powerful? I got to be the helper instead of the one needing help. I got to be generous instead of grateful. I got to give instead of receive. That's a gift, even if you meant it as a trap. The wisdom in that made my chest hurt. What happens now? I asked. What do you mean? I gestured helplessly at the space between us. This conversation. This understanding. What happens now? Nina stood. Now I go pick up Mara from her playdate. Make her dinner. Help with her homework. Keep surviving. Same as yesterday, same as tomorrow. Nothing changes? She looked at me with something like pity. Mr. Chinadler, James, everything changes. Every day. The question is whether you change with it or against it. She shouldered her bag. Your son is gone. That won't change. but who you are after he's gone. That changes every day with every choice you make. You can keep running experiments to prove the world is dark. Or you can look for evidence that there's still light. Either way, you'll find what you're looking for. She started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, I think David would want you to find the light. Kids always do. Then she was gone, disappearing into the stacks, leaving me alone with her words and the wreckage of my certainty. I sat in that library chair for 2 hours after Nina left. Just sat there, my laptop open to the spreadsheet of her purchases. Each line item a small indictment of who I'd become. $5,000 to David's fund. $892 for toys for dying children. $18,000 for single parents to finish their education. $3.47 for coffee and toast at 2 a.m. The numbers blurred together. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Work emails, meeting reminders, the world continuing as if nothing had shifted. But everything had shifted. The ground beneath me had cracked open and I was falling through. Around 4 p.m., I drove home. My house, mansion, really, though I hated that word, sat on 3 acres in Medina overlooking Lake Washington. 8,000 square feet for one person. David's room was still exactly as he'd left it. I'd fired the housekeeper after she tried to clean it. Rachel had begged me to at least pack up his things, donate them to children who could use them. I'd refused. Keeping his room frozen in time felt like keeping him alive somehow. But walking into that enormous house after my conversation with Nina, I saw it differently. Saw the waste, the emptiness, the way I'd been living in a shrine to my grief instead of a home. I went upstairs to David's room, stood in the doorway like I did most days. His bookshelf organized by color the way he'd insisted. His Lego creations on every surface. His bed, made with the blue comforter covered in planets and stars. His baseball glove on the windowsill. For the first time in 15 months, I walked all the way inside. I sat on his bed. The springs creaked. Everything smelled stale like abandonment. On his nightstand, there was a notebook. David's idea journal, where he wrote down things he wanted to do when he grew up. I'd never been able to open it before. Couldn't face seeing all the futures that would never happen. I picked it up. The cover was worn, covered in his drawings, stick figures, spaceships, dinosaurs. I opened to a random page. When I grow up, I want to help kids like me. Maybe be a doctor. Or maybe just visit hospitals and play games with sick kids so they don't feel so alone. Because being sick is scary, but being alone is worse. The date, 2 months before he died. I turned the page. Dad has been sad lately. He tries to hide it, but I can tell. I asked him if it was because of me being sick, and he said no, but I think it is. I wish I could make him not sad. Maybe if I beat this stupid cancer, he'll smile again. I closed the notebook, put it down with shaking hands. David had spent his final months worried about me, trying to make me smile while he was dying. And what had I done with the years after? Used his death as an excuse to become bitter, to run experiments that proved people were terrible, to honor his memory by assuming the worst about everyone. That's not what he would have wanted. That 9-year-old boy who wanted to help other sick kids so they wouldn't feel alone. He wouldn't recognize what I'd become. Nina was right. I'd been looking for darkness because it was easier than looking for light. Because if the world was dark, then David's death made sense. Bad things happen in a bad world. But if there was still light, if there were still people like Nina choosing kindness even in impossible circumstances, then David's death was just random. Just chance. Just the universe being indifferent. And somehow that was harder to accept. My phone rang. Rachel. James? I saw the final total from the credit card.
$52,000.
Please tell me you're not having a breakdown. I don't know what I'm having, I admitted. Where are you? In David's room. Silence. Then, I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm coming over. She hung up. Rachel arrived 45 minutes later. I heard her use her old key. I'd never asked for it back after the divorce. She found me still sitting on David's bed, the notebook in my hands. She stood in the doorway, taking in the unchanged room, the frozen time capsule of our son's life. You're still keeping it like this? She said softly. I didn't know how to let it go. She came in, sat beside me on the bed. We hadn't been this close in months. Tell me about the woman, Rachel said. The one you gave the credit card to. So I told her. Everything. The coffee shop, the experiment, the 24 hours of tracking, the library conversation. The way Nina had spent the money. The way she'd destroyed every assumption I'd built my grief on. Rachel listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Do you want to know what I think? She finally asked. Yes. I think you've been punishing yourself for surviving when David didn't. I think you've been trying to prove you don't deserve happiness because he didn't get to have a life. And I think this woman, Nina, she showed you that surviving can mean something. That you can honor David's memory not by being bitter but by being better. I don't know how to be better, I whispered. Yes, you do. She picked up the notebook, opened it to the page I'd been reading. David told you how. Help kids like him. Make sure sick kids don't feel alone. Be someone who brings light instead of someone who maps darkness. It's too late. I've spent 15 months becoming someone else. It's never too late. But James, she turned to face me fully. You have to actually change, not just feel bad about who you've been. Actually make different choices. Starting now. I don't know where to start. Yes, you do, she repeated. She stood, pulling me up with her. You start with this room. We pack up David's things. Not to forget him, but to let him rest. We donate what can help other kids. We keep what matters to us. And we let this room become what it needs to be. A memory we honor instead of a shrine we worship. I looked around the room, at the books David had loved, the clothes he'd outgrown, the toys he'd played with, the evidence of a life lived, cut short but real. Okay, I said, but not today. I need time. Not today, Rachel agreed. But soon. Promise me soon. I promise. She looked at me carefully. What are you going to do about Nina? What do you mean? I mean, she showed you something important. She gave you a gift, even though you didn't deserve it. What are you going to do with that gift? I didn't have an answer. Rachel kissed my forehead. Something she used to do when we were married, when comfort between us was easy and natural. Figure it out, she said. And James? Whatever you do, make sure David would be proud. She left me there in his room, surrounded by evidence of who he'd been and who I needed to become. That night, I did something I hadn't done since David's funeral. I went through old photos, not the professional ones from his funeral slideshow, but the random ones on my phone. Screenshots of texts, blurry videos of him doing homework or playing in the yard or just existing in his 9-year-old glory. There was one video I'd forgotten about. 3 months before diagnosis, David and I at a park. He was on the swings and I was pushing him. You could hear him laughing, yelling higher, higher, in that fearless way kids have before life teaches them to be afraid. In the video, he jumped off the swing mid-flight, something I told him not to do 1,000 times. Landed hard, scraped his knee, started crying. I watched myself run to him, watched myself check the damage, clean the scrape, comfort him. And then I heard my own voice on the video. You're okay, buddy. You're going to be okay. But he wasn't okay. 2 months later, we'd get the diagnosis. 6 months after that, he'd be gone. And all my reassurances, all my promises that he'd be okay, they were lies. I'd lied to my dying son. I watched the video again, and again. And somewhere around the 4th replay, I realized something. I hadn't lied. Not really. In that moment, with his scraped knee, he was okay. He was alive and loved and safe, and that was enough. The cancer that was already growing in his blood didn't negate that moment. Didn't make that happiness less real. Didn't make my comfort less true. David had been okay in the moments when he was okay. And I'd been okay too in those moments. We'd had years of being okay together before everything fell apart. The tragedy wasn't that I'd lied to him. The tragedy was that I'd forgotten we'd ever been okay at all. I'd been so focused on the ending, on the losing him, that I'd stopped honoring all the moments we'd had. All the joy, all the love, all the ordinary magic of being his father. Nina understood that. She was raising Mara in poverty, in struggle, in circumstances that would justify bitterness and defeat. But she wasn't letting those circumstances define her daughter's childhood. She was creating moments of okay, of happiness, of love that existed independent of their bank account. She was doing what I should have been doing, honoring the love instead of mourning the loss. I opened my laptop, started writing an email to Nina Reeves, subject, "Thank you," and a proposal. I typed for 2 hours, deleted it all, started again. This time I let it be messy, let it be honest. "Nina, I've spent the last 48 hours trying to understand what happened between us. The experiment I designed to prove you'd fail. The way you succeeded in ways I never anticipated. The way you showed me I'd been asking the wrong questions. I told you I was sorry in the library, but I don't think I explained what I was sorry for. Not fully. I'm sorry for reducing you to a variable in an equation. For treating your desperation as a data point. For assuming your poverty made you morally compromised. For thinking I had the right to test you at all. But more than that, I'm sorry for what I did after David died. I turned my grief into a weapon. Used it to justify cruelty. Told myself that if the world had been cruel to me, I had permission to be cruel back. You could have done that too. You've had plenty of reasons. Single mother, 3 jobs, barely surviving, no support system. You could have taken everything you could from my card and been completely justified. You could have said, the world owes me this, and no one would have blamed you. But you didn't. You took 1 day of power and used it to lift others. To be kind when you had every reason to be selfish. To choose light when darkness would have been easier. You did what I should have been doing all along, honoring the love instead of weaponizing the loss. I don't know if you'll even read this. I don't know if you want anything more to do with me. But I need you to know that you changed something in me. Something fundamental. And I want to do better. I want to be someone David would recognize again. Someone who looks for light instead of cataloging darkness. I have a proposal. Not another experiment. Not another test. Just an offer. I want to establish a fund. A real one. For single parents like you who are struggling to finish their education. For families who need help with medical bills. For kids who deserve toys and school supplies and the feeling that someone sees them. I want you to run it. Not as charity. As a job. A real salary. Real authority. You'd decide who gets help and how much. You'd be the person who looks at desperate situations and sees possibilities instead of problems. You'd get to do what you did with my credit card. But permanently. Professionally. I can't fix what I did. Can't undo the test or the assumption or the cruelty of it. But I can try to turn my mistake into something that matters. And I can't think of anyone better to trust with that than the woman who spent $47,000 of my money and made me wish she'd spent more. Think about it. No pressure. No strings. Just an offer to turn 1 day of power into a lifetime of it. James. I read it 3 times. It still felt inadequate. But it was honest. That had to count for something. I hit send before I could overthink it further. Then I opened a new email. This one to Rachel. I'm ready to pack David's room. This weekend if you'll help me. And Rachel, thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on myself. Send. I closed the laptop and looked around my empty house. 8,000 square feet of expensive emptiness. A monument to grief and isolation. Tomorrow that would start to change. Tonight, I let myself sit in the understanding of what I'd lost and what I might still find. Nina had shown me that surviving didn't have to mean becoming bitter. That being wounded didn't have to make you wounding. That you could acknowledge the darkness and still choose to create light. It wouldn't be easy. Changing never is. But for the first time in 15 months I thought maybe I could become someone David would be proud of again. Someone who honored his memory not by proving the world was dark, but by making it brighter. My phone buzzed. An email notification. From Nina. My hands shook as I opened it. James, I read your email twice. Then I cried. Then I read it again. I don't know if I'm the right person for what you're proposing. I don't have a degree. I'm not qualified to run anything. I'm just a woman who tries to survive and tries to be kind and most days feels like she's failing at both. But yes, I'll think about it. Yes, I'm willing to talk more. Yes, I believe people can change if they actually want to. Your son sounds like he was an amazing kid. The kind who saw the best in people and brought out the best in others. I think he'd want you to keep seeing the best. Keep bringing out the best. Even in yourself. I have one condition though. If we do this, you have to promise me something. Promise me you'll stop running experiments on people. Stop trying to prove they're terrible. Start assuming they're doing their best with what they have. Give people the benefit of the doubt instead of tests they're designed to fail. Can you do that?
Nina.
I typed my response immediately. Promise. When can we meet to discuss details? Her response came quickly. Saturday, 10 a.m. That coffee shop where this all started. And James? Bring Rachel if you want. I'd like to meet the woman who loved your son too. I sat there with my phone, a smile forming for the first time in longer than I could remember. Outside my window, the Seattle rain was falling. The same rain that had been falling for months while I cataloged darkness. But somehow tonight it looked different. Tonight it looked like washing things clean. Like starting over. Like possibility. Saturday morning, 9:45 a.m. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of my usual suit. Rachel was with me. We'd spent Friday packing David's room together. Not emptying it, but transforming it. His books going to the children's hospital library. His toys to the oncology ward. His clothes to a shelter for homeless families. We kept his journal, his drawings, photos, the things that held his voice. Rachel squeezed my hand as we walked into the coffee shop. Remember, listen more than you talk. When did you become so wise? I've always been this wise. You just stopped listening. But she smiled when she said it. Nina was already there, same bench outside. But this time Mara wasn't with her. Nina stood when she saw us, and I could see the nervousness in her posture. She dressed up, or what passed for dressing up when you had $3 to your name. Clean jeans, a sweater without holes, her hair pulled back. She looked younger, less exhausted, like maybe she'd slept. Nina, I said, this is Rachel. My ex-wife, Rachel finished, extending her hand. And David's mom. Nina shook it carefully. I'm so sorry for your loss. Both of you. Thank you, Rachel said. And thank you for what you did with James's credit card. The hospital told me about the toys. The kids are still playing with them. Nina's eyes filled. I couldn't stop thinking about them. About how scared they must be. David was terrified, Rachel said simply. But visitors helped. People who came and just saw him as a kid, not as a sick kid. You gave those children that gift. We bought coffee. I insisted on paying this time, and found a table inside where we could talk privately. Nina pulled out a notebook. She'd made lists. Of course she had. I've been thinking about your proposal, she said. About what it would actually look like. And I have questions. Ask anything, I said. Why me? Really? Not the pretty answer about what I did with the card. The real answer. Why would you trust someone with no degree, no experience, no credentials? I'd been expecting this question. Had prepared for it. Because credentials don't teach empathy, I said. Degrees don't teach you what it's like to stand in a grocery store counting pennies while your daughter pretends she isn't hungry. Experience doesn't give you the instinct to help others before yourself. You have something that can't be taught. You understand the people we'd be helping because you are one of the people we'd be helping. But that could make me biased. Could make me give money to the wrong people. Who are the wrong people? Rachel asked gently. Nina looked at her. People who'd waste it. Who'd use it for drugs or... People in crisis, Rachel interrupted. People struggling. People making mistakes because they're desperate. People exactly like you might have been if circumstances were slightly different. Nina's jaw tightened. I would never what? Never make a bad choice if you were desperate enough? Never prioritize the wrong thing if you were scared enough? Rachel's voice was kind but firm. Nina, the whole point of what James is proposing is trust. Trusting that people know what they need better than we do. Trusting that sometimes the help someone needs looks different than what we think it should look like. I watched Nina process this. Watched her defenses shift. What would my actual job be? She asked finally. I pulled out my phone. Showed her the document I'd been working on all night. Director of Community Impact, Chenadler Foundation. Salary of $120,000 per year. Full benefits. Your job would be to receive applications for assistance, evaluate need, and distribute funds. You'd have complete autonomy over decisions under $25,000. Anything larger would require board approval, but you'd have a seat on that board. Nina stared at the number. $120,000? That's what the position is worth. That's what you're worth. I make $28,000 a year working 3 jobs, she whispered. I know. That's going to change. She looked up at me, eyes wet. This is real. You're actually offering me a real job. Yes. And Nina, there's more. I pulled out another document. The foundation starts with a $10 million endowment. That gives us roughly $500,000 per year to distribute in perpetuity. Your job is to decide how to use it. $500,000. Her voice was faint. Every year, I confirmed. For single parents finishing education. For families with medical debt. For kids needing school supplies. For whatever you determine is the highest need. You'd be doing what you did with my credit card, but with structure and sustainability. I don't know how to run a foundation. I'll teach you, Rachel said. I ran a nonprofit before David got sick. I know grants, compliance, all the boring stuff. We'll do it together. Nina looked between us. Why? Why are you both doing this? Rachel and I exchanged a glance. I nodded for her to answer. Because grief makes you small if you let it, Rachel said. It makes you contract inward. Focus on your pain. Forget there's a world outside your loss. James spent 15 months getting smaller. You showed him how to expand again, how to look outward, how to honor David by helping the living instead of mourning the dead. And you? Nina asked Rachel. What do you get out of this? I get my ex-husband back, Rachel said simply. Not romantically, that ship sailed. But the James the first married, the one who built schools in developing countries and created scholarships for underprivileged kids, the one who believed people were fundamentally good. That James disappeared when David died. You helped him remember who he was. Nina was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I need to think about this, she said. It's everything. It's life-changing. And I need to make sure I'm not making a decision because I'm desperate. Take all the time you need, I said. The offer stands indefinitely. Can I ask one more question? Anything. What do you get out of this? She looked at me directly. What's in this for you? I thought about David's journal. About his wish to help kids like him. About the 15 months I'd spent proving the world was dark instead of trying to make it brighter. I get to be someone my son would recognize, I said. I get to turn the worst thing that ever happened to me into something that helps people. I get to stop being bitter and start being useful. That's worth more than money. Nina nodded slowly. Can I meet Mara here? I want her to see where this started. I want her to understand what's possible. Of course, I said. She pulled out her phone, made a call. 10 minutes later, a teenage girl arrived with Mara in tow. The babysitter. Nina paid her in cash, probably the last of whatever she had, and Mara bounded over. Mom, did you get the job? Can we get the apartment with the heat that works? Nina pulled her daughter onto her lap. Maybe, baby, maybe. Mara looked at me with those enormous brown eyes. Are you the man with the magic card? I smiled. I guess I am. Mom says you're a good person, but she says you forgot for a while because you were sad. Is that true? Out of the mouths of children. Yes, I said. That's exactly true. But your mom reminded me how to be good again. She's the best mom in the world, Mara said matter-of-factly. Everyone knows that. I'm starting to realize that. I agreed. We talked for another hour. about logistics, about Nina's concerns, about what the foundation could actually accomplish. Rachel took notes, asked practical questions, helped Nina see that this wasn't a fantasy but a real possibility with real structure. By noon, we had a plan. Nina would take 1 week to think it over, would talk to a lawyer Rachel recommended to review the contract, would visit the office space I'd already secured, would make the decision with full information and no pressure. As we were leaving, Mara tugged on my sleeve. "Mr. James? I made you something." She pulled out a folded piece of paper from her pocket. I opened it carefully. It was a drawing. 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a rainbow. Above them, a stick figure with angel wings and a halo. Underneath, in careful first-grade handwriting, "You and David. He's proud of you." I couldn't speak, just held that paper like it was made of glass. Nina saw it and her hand went to her mouth. "Mara, honey, it's perfect," I managed. "Thank you, Mara. I'm going to keep this forever." "Good," she said seriously, "because it took me 3 tries to get the rainbow right." Rachel hugged me as they left. "You okay?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think I'm heading in the right direction." "David would be so proud," she whispered. And for the first time since he died, I thought maybe she was right. Nina didn't give me an answer that week, but other things started shifting. Monday, I called the detective who'd questioned me about the credit card charges, explained the foundation, asked if there were families she encountered in her work who needed help. She gave me 17 names. Tuesday, Rachel and I met with lawyers to structure the foundation properly, create bylaws, establish oversight, make sure this was legitimate and sustainable, not just an impulse born from guilt. Wednesday, I visited Seattle Children's Hospital. Not the oncology ward, I wasn't ready for that yet. But I met with the director of patient services, asked what families needed most. She said, time. They need time with their kids without worrying about bills. They need someone to take the financial pressure off so they can focus on loving their child while they still can. I wrote her a check for $50,000 on the spot for the Family Emergency Fund. Thursday, I went back to David's room. It was empty now except for the things we'd kept. His journal on the shelf, photos on the wall, but it didn't feel like a tomb anymore. Felt like a memory, like love that existed even though he was gone. I sat on the floor and opened his journal to a random page. Today, Dad taught me about compound interest. He says if you save money and help it grow, it can help other people forever. That's what I want to do when I grow up. Make money that helps people forever. Compound interest. David had understood it at 9 years old. You invest something good and it grows and keeps growing and keeps helping long after you're gone. That's what the foundation would be. David's compound interest. His kindness multiplied. Friday, Nina texted me. "Nina, I talked to the lawyer. She says the contract is more than fair. Almost too fair." Me, "There's no such thing as too fair." "Nina, I have one condition. In addition to the one about stopping experiments." Me, "Name it." "Nina, the foundation can't just be about me distributing money. It has to include a mentorship program. Successful people paired with struggling families. Not just giving them money, but giving them guidance, support, someone who sees their potential." Me, "That's brilliant." "Nina, and you have to be a mentor. You have to actually spend time with the families we help. Know their names. Know their stories. No more treating people like data points." Me, "Deal." "Nina, then I accept. When do I start?" I stared at the text for a full minute. Me, "Monday, 9 a.m. I'll pick you and Mara up. We're going apartment hunting first." Nina, "James, I can find my own apartment." Me, "I know you can. But the foundation provides housing assistance for its director. It's in the contract." Nina, "I don't remember that clause." Me, "Addendum added 5 minutes ago. Rachel approved it." Nina, "You're impossible." Me, "I'm learning from the best." Nina, "See you Monday." I called Rachel immediately. She said yes. "I know." She texted me too. Said she wanted to make sure you were serious. that this wasn't some grief-driven impulse you'd regret. What did you tell her? I told her you're grief-driven, yes, but that's not a bad thing. Grief can drive people toward darkness or toward light. She's helping you choose light. Rachel. Yeah. Thank you. For not giving up on me. For believing I could still be someone worth believing in. James, you were always worth believing in. You just forgot for a while. We hung up and I sat in David's empty room, holding Mara's drawing, reading his journal and feeling, for the first time in 15 months, something that felt almost like hope. The Chinadler Foundation officially launched on what would have been David's 10th birthday, September 14th. We held a small ceremony at the Seattle Public Library, the same building where Nina had told me David would want me to find the light. 50 people came. Families we'd already helped. Social workers. Non-profit directors. Local journalists who'd gotten wind of the story. Billionaire's unusual experiment leads to charitable foundation. I'd been nervous about the press angle. Worried they'd sensationalize it, make Nina look like a charity case instead of a partner. But Rachel had coached me. Tell the truth. All of it. Own your mistakes. Let people see the transformation. So I did. I stood at a podium in front of those 50 people and I told them about David. About his death. About the darkness I'd fallen into. About the experiments I'd run trying to prove people were terrible. And then I told them about Nina. I gave a struggling single mother access to my credit card because I wanted to prove she'd be selfish. I said. I wanted evidence that desperation makes thieves of everyone. That poverty corrupts character. That given enough temptation and enough pressure, no one stays good. I looked at Nina, sitting in the front row with Mara. She was wearing professional clothes now, courtesy of the foundation's clothing budget. But her expression was the same. Dignified, present, real. Nina spent nearly $50,000 in 24 hours. I continued. And she proved me wrong about everything. She didn't use my money to escape her circumstances. She used it to lift everyone around her. She saw struggling families and helped them. She saw sick kids and brought them joy. She saw other single parents and funded their education. She spent less than 1% on herself. I paused, letting that sink in. I wanted to prove that poverty makes people selfish. Nina proved that poverty makes people generous because when you've been desperate, you recognize desperation in others. When you've needed help, you know how to help. When you've been invisible, you know how to see. The room was silent. The Chinadler Foundation exists because Nina taught me that I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking, what will people do when no one's watching? When I should have been asking, what will people do when someone finally gives them the chance? I was asking, how can I prove people are bad? When I should have been asking, how can I help people be their best? I gestured to the banner behind me. The foundation logo, designed by Mara, refined by professionals, showed hands lifting each other up. This foundation is named after my son David and after the woman who showed me how to honor his memory. It exists to help single parents finish their education, to assist families with medical debt, to provide for children who deserve better than circumstances have given them. And it exists to prove what Nina proved to me, that people, given the chance and the support, will choose light more often than we think. Applause. Real applause, not polite charity event clapping. I saw people wiping their eyes. Rachel stood next. She talked about David's journal, about his wish to help other sick kids, about how this foundation was his dream, just implemented by the people who loved him. Then Nina stood. She'd been terrified about speaking, had practiced with me for hours. But when she got to the podium, something shifted. She became calm, centered. My name is Nina Reeves, she said. 6 months ago, I was working 3 jobs and barely keeping my daughter fed. I was tired. I was scared. I was one emergency away from homelessness. And I thought that was just how life was. That struggling was my permanent state. She looked at me. Then a stranger gave me a test I didn't know I was taking. He gave me power I'd never had. And for 24 hours, I got to be the helper instead of the person needing help. I got to be generous instead of grateful. I got to give instead of receive. Her voice strengthened. That experience changed something in me. Not because of the money, though the money helped, but because it showed me I was capable of more than surviving. I was capable of thriving, of leading, of making decisions that mattered. James gave me a chance to prove that to myself. She pulled out a folder. In the last 6 months, this foundation has helped 127 families. We've funded education for 18 single parents returning to school. We've covered medical bills for 32 children. We've provided housing assistance for 49 families. We've given school supplies to every first grader at Mara's school and 15 other schools across Seattle. The numbers were staggering. I'd known them intellectually, but hearing Nina say them out loud, hearing the impact quantified, made my chest tight. But more than that, Nina continued, we've started something that I hope becomes a model. We're not just giving people money. We're giving them partnership, mentorship, support. We're treating them like they're capable because they are. We're trusting them to know what they need because they do. We're seeing their potential instead of their problems. She paused, emotional. James gave me a test to prove I'd fail. I passed it. But the real test wasn't what I did with his money. The real test was what he'd do after, whether he'd let himself be changed by what he learned, or whether he'd retreat back into cynicism. She looked at me directly. He passed. He let himself be changed. He let himself become the person his son always knew he could be. Now I was crying, openly, in front of 50 people. So this foundation isn't just about the families we help, Nina finished. It's about what becomes possible when people let themselves be transformed. When they choose growth over bitterness. When they choose light over darkness. When they choose to honor loss by helping the living. She stepped down to thunderous applause. Mara ran up to her, hugging her legs. Nina picked her up, 7 years old now, getting big but still small enough to carry, and held her while people stood and clapped. I saw families in the audience crying. Saw social workers nodding. Saw the journalists scribbling furiously. But mostly I saw Rachel, standing to the side, smiling at me with something like pride. After the ceremony, people lined up to talk to Nina, to thank her, to share their stories. I watched her listen to each person with that particular quality of attention she had, the one that made people feel seen. A woman my age approached me. She had a young boy with her, maybe 8 years old. He was wearing a hospital bracelet. Mr. Chin Adler? I'm Patricia Williams. Your foundation covered my son's chemotherapy copays last month. We were going to have to stop treatment because we couldn't afford it. But you, her voice broke. You saved his life. The boy looked up at me with huge eyes like David's had been. Are you the man my mom talks about? He asked. The one who helps sick kids? I knelt down to his level. I try to help, but really, it's other people's generosity that does it. I just help get the money to where it needs to go. My name is Trevor, he said. I have leukemia, just like the David person the foundation is named after. My throat closed up. David was my son, I managed. Did he beat it? I shook my head. No, he didn't. Trevor considered this. Then, with the devastating frankness of children, I'm going to beat it for both of us. I had to stand up, had to walk away before I completely fell apart. But Trevor's mom caught my arm. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for turning your grief into something that saves other children. Thank you for not letting David's death be the end of the story. I nodded because I couldn't speak. Rachel found me a few minutes later, standing alone in a hallway, trying to compose myself. You okay? She asked. Trevor reminds me of him. Same age, same disease, same determination to beat it. Maybe he will, Rachel said softly. Maybe Trevor will get the miracle David didn't. And if he does, it'll be partly because of what you built here. We built it, I corrected. You, me, and Nina. No, Rachel said. Nina built it. We just gave her the tools. She's the one who knew what to do with them. She was right. I'd provided money and structure, but Nina had provided vision. She'd known instinctively how to help because she'd been the one needing help. She'd understood that charity without dignity is just another form of control. That help works best when it comes with trust and respect. I need to tell you something, Rachel said. I'm going to take a position with the foundation. Half-time. Running operations while Nina focuses on outreach and distribution. Rachel, you don't have to. I want to. I need something that feels meaningful. And this, she gestured to the event, to the people, to the transformation happening around us. This is the most meaningful thing I've been part of since David died. Let me help. Let me be part of his legacy too. I hugged her. Really hugged her. For the first time since the divorce. He'd be so proud of you, she whispered. He'd be proud of all of us, I replied. The evening wound down. Families left with information packets. Journalists left with stories. Social workers left with partnership agreements. Nina, Mara, Rachel, and I were the last ones there. We sat in the empty event room, surrounded by the detritus of the launch, empty coffee cups, discarded programs, Mara's drawings scattered on a table. We did it, Nina said softly. You did it, I corrected. We just followed your lead. No, she said firmly. We did it together. That's the whole point. None of us could have done this alone. Mara was half asleep in her mother's lap. Nina stroked her hair absently, that particular mother's gesture that speaks of love deeper than words. Can I tell you something? Nina asked. Something I haven't told anyone? Of course. That day you gave me the card, I almost didn't take it. I was terrified it was a trap, that you'd film me, or report me for theft, or do something to humiliate me for being poor. I'm so sorry I gave you reason to think that. But then I looked at Mara, and I thought, what if it's real? What if I could help her, help others, help myself? What if this is the chance I've been praying for? She smiled sadly. I took the card because I decided that even if it was a trap, even if you humiliated me or hurt me or used my desperation against me, it was worth the risk. Because living in fear of being hurt keeps you small. And I didn't want Mara to learn to live small. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard, Rachel said quietly. It wasn't brave. It was desperate, Nina corrected. But sometimes desperation looks like bravery from the outside. And sometimes, I said, the bravest thing is letting yourself be changed by someone else's desperation. Letting someone show you that you've been wrong. That's what you did for me. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Mara's breathing had evened out. She was asleep. I need to get her home, Nina said. Big day tomorrow. First day of second grade. I remember when we had those, Rachel said wistfully. They grow so fast, Nina agreed. Then to me, thank you, James, for everything. For the test, even though it was cruel. For the foundation. For trusting me. For letting yourself change. Thank you for changing me, I replied. She smiled. Then she and Mara left, Nina carrying her sleeping daughter with practiced ease. Rachel and I stayed a bit longer, helping the venue staff clean up. Do you think about him less now? Rachel asked suddenly. David, now that you're busy with the foundation. No, I said honestly. I think about him constantly, but it's different now. Before, thinking about him was just pain, just loss. Now when I think about him, I think about his journal, about his wish to help other kids, about how the foundation is literally making that happen. Thinking about him hurts less because it's connected to something meaningful. Good, Rachel said. That's good. We finished cleaning in silence. Then, as we were leaving, Rachel stopped. You know what David would say if he could see all this? What? See, Dad? I told you people are good. She smiled through tears. He always believed that. Even when he was sick. Even when he was scared. He believed in goodness. He got that from you, I said. He got it from both of us. We just forgot for a while. We walked out into the Seattle evening. September air, cool and clean. The kind of night that feels like possibility. Somewhere in the city, Trevor Williams was probably asleep, his mother watching him breathe, praying he'd beat the cancer David couldn't. Somewhere, Nina was tucking Mara into bed, reading her a story, showing her daughter what it looks like to survive and thrive and help others do the same. Somewhere, 127 families were living slightly easier because of what we'd built. And somewhere, I chose to believe this, David was proud. I'm standing in the oncology ward at Seattle Children's Hospital. The same ward where David spent his final months. The same ward I couldn't face for over 2 years after his death. But I'm here now, every Tuesday, for the past 6 months. I'm one of the Foundation's mentors, and this is my assignment. Spend time with kids fighting cancer. Play games, read stories, just be present. Make sure they feel seen. Today, I'm reading to a little girl named Sophie. She's 6, diagnosed 3 months ago, bald from chemo but somehow still radiant. Mr. James, she says, interrupting the story. Why do you come here every week? Because you kids are the bravest people I know. I say honestly. And I like spending time with brave people. But it makes you sad. I can tell. Kids see everything. Sometimes sad and good can exist together. I tell her, being here makes me sad because it reminds me of my son. But it also makes me happy because I get to know amazing kids like you. She considers this. Was your son brave? The bravest person I ever knew. I'll be brave too, she decides. For both of us. Her mother, watching from the doorway, mouths thank you to me. This is what the Foundation has become. Not just financial assistance, though we've now helped over 400 families with that. But presence, partnership, the understanding that what people need most isn't money. It's to be seen, to be valued, to be believed in. After the hospital visit, I drive to the Foundation office. We've expanded 3 full-time staff now, plus Rachel part-time, Nina as director, and me as board chair. Our budget has grown too. The initial $10 million has attracted other donors. People who see what we're doing and want to be part of it. We're replicating the model in Portland next month. Eventually, we hope to go nationwide. Nina is in her office when I arrive, reviewing grant applications. She looks up and smiles. How was Sophie today? Brave. She's always brave. Takes one to know one, Nina says. I'm not brave. I'm just trying to be better than I was. Same thing, she replies. She hands me a folder. We got a letter yesterday. I wanted you to see it. I open it. The letterhead is from Seattle University. The text reads, Dear Chinadler Foundation, I am writing to inform you that Maria Castellanos has graduated with her degree in elementary education. She was one of your first recipients, a single mother of 3 who had dropped out years ago due to financial hardship. Maria now has a full-time position teaching 3rd grade at Rainier Elementary. But more importantly, she has become an advocate for other parents in similar situations. She's helping them navigate the systems, apply for aid, believe their education is possible. Your foundation didn't just help one woman. You helped create a multiplier effect. Maria is now helping others the way you helped her. The investment you made in her is expanding exponentially. Thank you for seeing her worth when no one else did. I have to sit down. The compound interest. It's working exactly how David described in his journal. We're getting letters like this every week now, Nina says. People we helped who are now helping others. It's beautiful. It's what you do, I point out. You helped yourself by helping others. I learned it from desperation, she says. You can't survive alone. You have to build community. You have to help each other. That's the only way anyone makes it. My phone buzzes. Text from Rachel. Rachel, Trevor Williams just got his 1-year all clear. He's in remission. His mom wants to thank you personally. I show Nina the text. She reads it and her eyes fill. David would be so happy, she says softly. He'd be happy about all of it. I agree. About Trevor. About Maria. About the 400 families. About you running this foundation. About me finally being someone worth being again. Nina looks at me seriously. You were always worth being. You just forgot. Grief does that. Makes you forget who you are underneath the pain. How did you never forget? Ask. You've had plenty of reasons. Single parent, poverty, exhaustion, all of it. How did you stay kind? She thinks about this. I had Mara. She was my reason to stay human, to stay hopeful. to keep believing things could get better. She pauses. But also, I think some people respond to hardship by closing. They protect themselves by shutting down. And some people respond by opening. They protect themselves by connecting. I chose opening. Not because I'm better, but because that's what felt survivable. You're describing resilience. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just describing stubbornness. She smiles. Refusing to let circumstances define me. Refusing to let poverty make me small. Refusing to let struggle make me selfish. That's what David did too, I realize aloud. He refused to let cancer make him bitter. Even at 9 years old, he kept being kind, kept thinking about others, kept believing in goodness. Then you raised him right, Nina says simply. The words hit me in the chest. All this time, I'd been thinking I'd failed David by not saving him, by not finding the cure, by not being enough. But Nina was right. I'd raised him to be kind in the face of cruelty, to be generous in the face of loss, to believe in light even in darkness. And now I was finally living up to the standard he'd set. That evening, I do something I've been building toward for months. I drive to David's grave. I haven't been since the funeral. Couldn't face it. But now I need to tell him what's happened. Need to close the loop. The headstone is simple. David Chinadler.
Bélové de son.
His light continues. I sit on the grass beside it, pull out my phone and start talking. Hey buddy, it's been a while. I'm sorry about that. I was lost for a while. But I think I'm finding my way back. I tell him about Nina, about the credit card experiment that backfired so spectacularly, about the foundation, about the 400 families, about Trevor going into remission, about Sophie being brave, about Maria teaching 3rd grade, about all the ways his dream of helping sick kids has come true. You wrote in your journal that you wanted to make money that helps people forever. Compound interest, you called it. I didn't understand what you meant at the time, but I get it now. You invest in people, really invest with trust and support and belief, and they multiply that investment. They help others who help others who help others. It never stops growing. The sun is setting. Golden light across the cemetery. I met someone who taught me that. Her name is Nina. She's raising a daughter on her own, just like Mom raised you when I was traveling too much for work. She's teaching her kid to be kind even when life is hard. Just like you were kind even when cancer was hard. A breeze rustles the trees. I think you'd like Nina. You'd like how she helps people. You'd like how she never gave up even when everything was terrible. You'd like Mara too, her daughter. She's 7 now. She reminds me of you sometimes. That same determination. That same belief that things will get better. I'm crying now, but it doesn't hurt the way it used to. It's softer. More like release than drowning. I tried to prove the world was as dark as losing you felt. I wanted everyone to be terrible because then your death would make sense. But Nina proved me wrong. She showed me that even in the worst circumstances, people can still choose light. And buddy, you already knew that. You lived it. Even when you were sick, even when you were scared, you were still thinking about other kids. Still wanting to help. I touched the headstone. Cold granite under my fingers. I'm trying to be more like you were. Trying to see the good instead of cataloging the bad. Trying to help instead of just hurting. It's hard sometimes. I still get angry. I still miss you so much it feels like I can't breathe. But I'm learning that missing you and helping others can exist together. That honoring your memory means being the person you always believed I could be. The light is fading. Soon it'll be dark. Mom's helping with the foundation too. She's amazing at it. You'd be proud of how she's turned her grief into action. We're not together anymore. Not like that. But we're partners in keeping your dream alive. That feels right somehow. I stand up, brushing grass from my pants. I'm going to keep coming back. Going to keep telling you about the families we help. About the kids who beat cancer because we covered their treatment. About the single parents who finished school because we believed in them. About all the ways your compound interest keeps growing. One last touch to the headstone. I love you, David. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out how to live after you died. But I'm figuring it out now. Thanks for being patient with me. I walk back to my car. The cemetery is quiet except for birdsong and wind. My phone buzzes. Text from Nina. Nina, Mara wants to know if you're coming to her school play tomorrow. She's playing a tree. Me wouldn't miss it for the world. What time? Nina? 6 p.m. Fair warning. She takes her tree role very seriously. There will be extensive branch movements. Me? I expect nothing less from Mara the method actor. Nina? See you there. And James? Thank you. For everything. Me? Thank you for saving my life. Nina, you saved your own life. I just reminded you it was worth saving. I sit in the car for a moment, reading that exchange, thinking about how much has changed in 1 year. A year ago, I was designing experiments to prove people were terrible, running tests meant for people to fail, using my grief as an excuse to hurt others. Now I'm going to a second grader school play because her mother showed me that the best revenge against darkness is to create light. The elementary school cafeteria-turned-theater is packed with parents. I spot Nina in the third row saving a seat. Rachel is beside her. They've become genuine friends over the past year, bonded by their shared mission and mutual care for me. I slide in next to them just as the lights dim. Did I miss anything? I whisper. Just the principal's welcome speech about the importance of arts education despite budget cuts. Rachel whispers back, which, ironically, our foundation just helped fund. The play is a children's adaptation of a folk tale about a community coming together to save their forest. It's adorable and chaotic in the way only elementary school productions can be. Mara is indeed taking her tree role seriously. She sways with exaggerated branch movements, provides shade for the animal characters, and in one memorable moment, drops leaves on the villain by throwing green construction paper. Nina is filming on her phone, tears streaming down her face, pride radiating from her. She's amazing, I whisper. She's a tree. Nina whispers back, laughing through tears. But yes, she's the best tree that ever treed. After the play, Mara runs up to us, still wearing her brown trunk costume and green leaf crown. Did you see me? Did you see my branch movements? You were magnificent. I tell her seriously. Oscar-worthy tree performance. What's an Oscar? It's an award for being excellent at your job. Which you were. She beams. Then, unexpectedly, she hugs me. Just wraps her arms around my waist and holds on. Thank you for coming, Mr. James. And thank you for giving my mom the job. Our apartment has heat now and I have my own bed and Mom doesn't cry at night anymore. Nina makes a sound behind me. When I look back, she's covering her mouth, tears flowing freely. Your mom is the strongest person I know, I tell Mara. She's the one who made all that happen. But you helped, Mara insists. Mom says that's what people do. They help each other. And you helped us. Out of the mouths of children. Rachel drives Nina and Mara home after. They still don't have a car. Something we're working on. And I head back to my house. The big, empty mansion that used to feel like a monument to isolation. But it doesn't feel empty anymore. Because I'm not isolating anymore. I'm living. I'm sitting at my desk at home, looking at the spreadsheet from that day 1 year ago. The day I gave Nina my credit card. The 91 transactions she made in 24 hours. I've looked at this spreadsheet hundreds of times. But tonight I noticed something I never saw before. Transaction 47. $18,000 to Seattle University Student Emergency Fund. The note said, for the single parents who had to drop out. Let them finish. Nina had been one of those single parents. She dropped out when she got pregnant with Mara. Never finished her degree. Gave up her dream of being a teacher so she could survive being a mother. And when she had unlimited resources for 24 hours, one of the first things she did was fund other people to finish what she couldn't. She'd given others the dream she'd lost. That's who Nina is. Someone who doesn't let her pain make her petty. Who doesn't let her loss make her selfish. Who sees her own broken dreams as a reason to fix someone else's. I think about all the tests I ran before Nina. All the people I set up to fail so I could prove my cynicism was justified. All the evidence I collected that people are fundamentally selfish. What if I'd been testing them the wrong way? What if the problem wasn't them, it was me? I'd been creating environments designed to bring out people's worst, then acting shocked when they behaved badly. But Nina had shown me what happens when you create an environment designed to bring out people's best. When you give them trust instead of suspicion, resources instead of scarcity, belief instead of doubt, they rise to it. Not all of them, not always, but more often than my cynicism had allowed me to see. My phone rings. Unknown number, but I answer anyway. Mr. Chinadler? This is Patricia Williams, Trevor's mom.
Patricia, y.
I heard Trevor got his all clear. That's incredible news. That's why I'm calling. I wanted to thank you personally. The foundation covered our treatment when we couldn't afford it. You literally saved my son's life. The foundation did that. Not just me. I know, but you started it. You built it. And I wanted you to know, Trevor wants to be a doctor now. He says he's going to cure cancer so no kids have to go through what he went through. He's 8 years old and he's already planning his future around helping others. My throat closes up. That sounds like my son David. He wanted the same thing. I know. I read about him. That's why I'm calling. I wanted you to know that David's dream isn't dead. It's alive in Trevor. It's alive in Sophie and in all the other kids your foundation has helped. His dream is multiplying. Compound interest. Thank you for telling me that. I manage? No, thank you. Thank you for turning your grief into something that saves children. Thank you for not letting David's death be the end. Thank you for making his dream come true. We hang up and I sit there holding my phone, crying again. But this time the tears feel different. They feel like cleansing, like release, like the final letting go of the person I became after David died. That angry, bitter, cynical person who ran experiments to prove people were terrible. He's gone now, replaced by someone who still carries grief, still carries loss, still carries pain, but who has learned to carry hope alongside it. You know what's interesting about stories like this? When I tell people what happened, about the credit card, about Nina, about the foundation, they always ask the same question. Would I have done what Nina did? If I'd been in her position, would I have chosen to help others first? And here's what I've learned. That's the wrong question. The right question is, am I creating environments where people can be their best? Am I giving people trust or suspicion? Am I looking for evidence of goodness or evidence of selfishness? Because we find what we're looking for. I spent 15 months looking for darkness, and I found it everywhere. But the darkness wasn't in other people, it was in how I was looking at them. Nina taught me to look differently, to see people's struggles not as moral failings but as circumstances, to see desperation not as corruption but as pressure that reveals character. Sometimes brings out the worst, but often brings out unexpected beauty. If you're watching this story and you're going through something dark, grief, loss, betrayal, failure, any of the 1,000 ways life can hurt you, I want you to know something. You get to choose what you do with that darkness. You can use it as evidence that the world is terrible and everyone is selfish and nothing good is possible. I did that for 15 months and all it gave me was more darkness. Or you can use it as fuel, as motivation, as a reason to be better than your circumstances, to help others who are hurting, to create light in places that feel hopeless. Nina chose that path even though she had every reason not to, even though she was struggling, even though she was exhausted, even though no one would have blamed her for choosing herself first. And because she chose light, she changed my life. She changed 400 families' lives. She changed Trevor's life, Sophie's life, Maria's life. She started a chain reaction of goodness that's still spreading. That's what becomes possible when you refuse to let darkness win. When you choose to be generous instead of bitter. When you choose to help instead of hurt. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. I'm still angry sometimes. Still sad. Still struggling to make sense of a world where 9-year-old boys die from cancer. But I'm also hopeful. Also active. Also making a difference instead of just cataloging failures. And that's entirely because a struggling single mother looked at unlimited resources and decided to lift everyone around her instead of just herself. The Chinadler Foundation is real. It's operating in Seattle and Portland now, soon expanding to 3 more cities. We've helped over 400 families so far. We're planning to help thousands more. Nina is still running it, still making decisions about who to help and how, still seeing people's potential instead of their problems. Rachel is still helping with operations, still honoring David's memory by making his dream real. I'm still mentoring kids in the oncology ward, still reading to them, still making sure they feel seen. Mara is in 3rd grade now, still the happiest kid I know despite everything she and her mom have been through, still teaching me about resilience just by existing joyfully in circumstances that would justify misery. And Trevor is in remission, planning his future, dreaming of curing cancer, carrying forward the hope that David planted. That's what compound interest looks like. That's what happens when you invest in people with trust and support and belief. It multiplies, it spreads, it never stops growing. David understood that at 9 years old. Nina understood it through lived experience. I had to be taught the hard way, by running an experiment that backfired so spectacularly it changed my life. I gave Nina a credit card to prove she'd be selfish. She used it to prove I'd been looking at the world through the wrong lens. She failed my test by being better than I ever expected. And in failing, she saved me. That's the real story. Not about what a poor woman did with a rich man's money, but about what happens when we let ourselves be changed by other people's goodness. When we stop defending our cynicism and start embracing our capacity for hope. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. I know it was long, but some stories can't be told quickly. Some transformations require you to see every step, every choice, every moment where things could have gone differently but didn't. If this story resonated with you, if you felt it deep in that place where your own struggles live, then I want you to know something. You're not alone. Your story matters. Your choices matter. And how you respond to your darkest moments will define who you become more than the dark moments themselves ever could. Nina chose light. I learned to choose light. And now I'm inviting you to choose it too. Not because it's easy. Not because it guarantees a happy ending. But because it's the only choice that honors the love we carry, the losses we've survived, and the people who deserve better from us. The subscribe button is right there. This channel exists because stories like this need to be told. Because transformation is possible. Because people are better than their worst moments. Because choosing light in darkness is the most human thing we can do. If you're here for authentic stories about real struggles and real redemption, if you want more content that doesn't look away from the hard parts but also doesn't stop at the darkness, then this community is for you. Hit that subscribe button. Not for the algorithm. Not because I'm asking, but because you're choosing to be part of something that believes in people. That sees potential instead of problems. That knows everyone is fighting battles we don't see and deserves compassion because of it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling. Someone who's lost hope. Someone who needs to know that their darkest chapter doesn't have to be their last chapter. Comment below and tell me, what would you have done with that credit card? Would you have been Nina? Or would you have been someone different? There's no wrong answer, just honesty. Because honesty is how we grow. And remember, your story isn't over. The worst chapter doesn't get to be the last chapter. You get to write the ending. I learned that from a woman who counted pennies for hot chocolate and then spent $50,000 lifting everyone around her. I learned it from a 9-year-old boy who wanted to help sick kids even while he was dying. I learned it from an ex-wife who refused to give up on me even when I'd given up on myself. And now I'm passing it on to you. Choose light. Create compound interest. Be someone who helps others become their best. The world needs more Ninas. More Davids. More people who refuse to let circumstances define their capacity for goodness. Maybe that person is you. Until next time, remember that you matter. Your choices matter. And the light you create in dark places matters more than you'll ever know. I'll see you in the next story. 3 years after the initial experiment. It's David's birthday. He would have been 12 today. The foundation is hosting its annual gala fundraiser. 200 people. Silent auction. Testimonials from families we've helped. Nina is giving the keynote speech. But before that, there's something I need to do. I drive to the coffee shop where this all started. Same bench. Same spot where I first saw Nina counting pennies. She's already there, waiting, like we planned. Every year? She asks as I sit down. Every year, I confirm. Anniversary of the day that changed everything. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment. 3 years of friendship, partnership, and shared mission between us. I still think about that day, Nina says quietly, about how close I came to not taking the card, to walking away, to deciding it was too risky. What made you take it, Mara? I thought, even if it's a trap, even if he humiliates me, even if it goes wrong, she deserves a mother who takes chances, who doesn't let fear make her small. I'm so grateful you took the chance. Me too. She pulls out something from her bag. I brought you something. For David's birthday. It's a framed photo. Nina, Mara, and about 30 other kids, all the children from the oncology ward where I volunteer. They're holding a banner that reads, David's Dream Team. We took this last week, Nina explains. Mara organized it. She wanted you to see how many kids know David's story. How many of them are fighting their own battles with his dream in their hearts. I can't speak. Just hold the photo and try not to completely fall apart. Trevor's in there, Nina points. Front row. He just finished his 3rd year cancer-free. He's gonna make it, James. He's going to beat it. Because of David's fund. Because of what you built. Because of what we built together. She corrects gently. My phone buzzes. Rachel sending photos from the gala setup. The venue looks beautiful. Professional. Real. We should go, Nina says. Speech in an hour. Wait, before we do, I need to tell you something. She looks at me curiously. That day I gave you the card. I told you I wanted to test human nature, but that wasn't the whole truth. I know, she says simply. You know, James, I've known since the beginning. You wanted to prove people are terrible so you'd have permission to be terrible yourself. You wanted proof that David died in a dark world so his death would make sense. And you took the card anyway? I took the card because I saw what you couldn't see about yourself, that you were still capable of good even while you were testing others for bad, that you'd given a stranger unlimited money even though you expected her to betray you, that underneath all your cynicism was someone who still wanted to believe in people. She stands, offers me her hand. And I was right. You became the person David always knew you could be. You just needed someone to show you it was possible. I take her hand. Let her pull me up. Thank you, I say, for everything, for passing my test by failing it, for teaching me how to look at the world differently, for being exactly who you are. Thank you for giving me the chance to show you who I am. Not many people do that for women like me. We walk to my car. Nina gets in and we drive toward the gala together. You know what's funny? I say. I designed that test hoping you'd fail, hoping you'd prove everyone is selfish. And instead you proved that everyone has the capacity for incredible generosity. They just need someone to believe in them first. That's not funny, Nina says. That's life. That's how it works. We become what people expect us to become. You expected me to fail, but you gave me resources anyway. And I chose to prove the resources right, not the expectation. We pull up to the venue. Nina checks her reflection in the visor mirror, smooths her dress. A nice one, professional. The kind she couldn't have afforded 3 years ago. Ready? Ask. Ready. She pauses, hand on the door. James? One more thing. Yeah. I forgive you. For the test. For the assumptions. For treating me like an experiment. I forgave you a long time ago, but I wanted you to know it officially. You were in pain and you made a mistake. But you owned it. You changed. That's all anyone can ask. The words hit me harder than I expected. Permission I didn't know I needed. Thank you, I whisper. Now let's go show 200 people what becomes possible when we choose to believe in each other. We walk into the gala together. Partners. Friends. Living proof that the worst moments can become catalysts for the best transformations. That night, Nina gives a speech that makes grown adults cry. Rachel presents the annual impact report, 847 families helped, 67 single parents completing degrees, countless medical bills covered, thousands of children receiving the support they deserve. And at the end, we announced the newest program, the David Chun Mentorship Initiative. Successful professionals paired with struggling families. Not just money, but partnership, presence, belief. 50 people sign up that night to be mentors. Compound interest still growing. I go to David's grave after the gala. Sit in the grass like I do every month now. Hey buddy, another birthday, 12 years old. You'd be in middle school now. Probably taller than me. Probably rolling your eyes at everything I say like all 12-year-olds do. The stars are out. Clear night. Rare for Seattle. We helped 847 families this year. Nina's idea about the mentorship program is already changing lives. Trevor's still cancer-free. He wants to meet you someday. Says he feels like he knows you from all my stories. A breeze rustles the trees. I think about what you wrote in your journal. About compound interest. About making money that helps people forever. You were right, David. You were 9 years old and you understood something it took me 42 years and losing you to learn. I pull out Mara's drawing from 3 years ago. The one of David as an angel. I keep it in my wallet. Your dream is real. Your light continues. Just like your headstone says. And it's going to keep continuing long after I'm gone too. That's the magic of compound interest. It never stops growing. I stand, brushing grass from my pants. I'm going to keep coming. Keep telling you about the families. Keep making you proud. Keep being the dad you deserved. Even if I can't be it with you anymore, I can be it in your memory. I walk back to my car. Rachel is waiting there. She'd come to the gala but gave me space for this visit. How are you? She asks. I'm okay. Really okay. Not pretending okay. She smiles. Good. He'd be proud of you. He'd be proud of all of us. We drive home in comfortable silence. Partners in grief, partners in healing, partners in making sure David's death meant something. My phone buzzes. Text from Nina. Nina, thank you for tonight. For believing in me 3 years ago. For letting me prove you wrong. For building this with me. Me. Thank you for saving my life when I didn't know it needed saving. Nina, that's what people do. They save each other. I read that message 3 times. That's what people do. They save each other. Nina taught me that. David lived it. And now hundreds of families benefit from it. That's the real ending. Not that I gave a poor woman my credit card. Not that she spent it on others instead of herself. But that we saved each other. She saved me from cynicism. I saved her from poverty. And together we're saving families from the darkness that almost consumed both of us. Compound interest. Always growing. Never stopping. That's David's legacy. That's Nina's gift. That's the truth I learned the hard way. We find what we look for. And when we choose to look for light, even in the darkest circumstances, we find it. Not always. Not easily. But more often than despair would have us believe. And that makes all the difference. Thank you for investing 90 minutes of your life in this story. That's not a small thing. That's a gift you gave me, and I hope I gave you something meaningful in return. If this story changed something in you, if it made you see people differently, or grief differently, or your own capacity for transformation differently, then leave a comment. Tell me what hit you hardest. Tell me what you'll carry forward. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This channel is built on stories that matter. Stories about real human struggle and real human triumph. Stories that don't look away from darkness but refuse to stop there. Be the light. Create compound interest. Choose to see people's potential instead of their problems. The world needs you.